primary MOS, I'm a 68 Mike by trade. That is a nutrition care specialist in the Army. Probably, in my opinion, the greatest MOS in the Army, because we provide in the direction that the Army is going with H2F and all of these different holistic approaches to optimizing performance for soldiers. It's the best MOS that you can have.
Okay, so how long are you guys where and how long is you guys AIT?
So the first part of your AIT, you're going to go to Fort Lee because you have to learn how to cook the Army way and look to understand the formulas and the processes for how food is made from the Army standard. And then from there, you go to Fort Sam Houston, where you learn the nutrition side of things. You learn how to do all of the calculations for macro and micronutrients. You learn how to provide for patients on specific diets. You learn how to, optimize human performance from a nutrition perspective. So you go Fort Lee 8 weeks, Fort Sam 9 weeks, and then you become a 68 Mike.
Okay, so basic in AIT, right? So what's your most memorable moment in basic in AIT, if you got one?
The most memorable moment I want to say was from basic training. I talked a lot, but I didn't understand how the Army worked yet, because I was only I'm still a kid. I'm a child. I'm 17. I don't know how enlisted officer works, because 9 times out of majority of the time I'm not paying attention. So we're in the breezeway, and the company commander walks in, and I don't call the room to attention, or I don't, call the company to attention. I just look at him, and he looks at me, and he just walks right into the office. And then my drill sergeant came out, and she just she made me do PT for a long time that day. It was quite an interesting turn of events, but I learned from it. I learned, to look at rank and understand what rank means in the Army.
Yeah, because they take that kind of serious,
Yeah, especially in basic training. Understanding rank structure and understanding who officers are, what they represent to the Army organization and the enterprise is very important. And as a new soldier, especially week 4 or 5, you should kind of know. And I just was a young 17-year-old ripping and running and not really paying attention to anything at that time.
Okay, so far as your leadership, so the leaders you have, you got any leaders that kind of specifically stand out at the front of your mind,
yeah,
that affected you in a positive way?
Yeah, actually I do. My first assignment was in Germany, Landstuhl Regional Medical Center. And because our MOS is so small, you constantly run back into people that you know. So my first supervisor was actually, majority of my supervisors came from Germany. I'll say that. And the 2 that I had the fondest memories of, they're both retired. Sergeant First Class Bowens, she was Sergeant First Class Green at the time, and then Sergeant First Class retired Lee. They were both my NCOs, and they took care of me. Sergeant Bowens is my Army mom. Always kept me on the straight and narrow, kept me well taken care of. Sergeant Lee was like an older sister. She was always making sure that I understood the process of being in the Army and what that could look like for the future. So those are the 2 leaders that I gravitated towards the most. And then when I was an instructor, they were both at Fort Sam during my time as an instructor, and they both retired from the Army as Sergeant First Classes, but those were the two most important people as far as being a 68 Mike in my careers from their mentorship.
Okay, so while we speaking of leaders, can you kind of explain to the people what makes a great leader to you?
What makes a great leader to me is someone who has the ability to adapt their leadership style to what is needed at the moment. I think a lot of times leaders get stuck in one way of doing things, but you should really be, you should have an adaptive leadership style. You should know when to utilize firm but fair. You should know when to utilize a softer approach. You should, understand how the regulations dictate what needs to be done at those particular moments. So I think for me, if I'm answering the question correctly, I would say leaders should just be hyper adaptive to whatever is needed from them to get to optimize their soldiers.
Okay. So there you guys go. You guys kind of got to know Sergeant First Class Gadson. So make sure you guys follow the podcast on Instagram at Soldiers Talk the Podcast. Also, you can find the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Sergeant, do you got any closing remarks or anything? As far as anything you want the soldiers to know?
At the end of the day, we are all people, and we should definitely treat each other with dignity and respect, and ensure that we're fostering a climate that allows people to be the best versions of themselves every day. And that's all I got, man.
Okay. Appreciate that, Sarge.
Yep.
So this has been another episode of Soldiers Talk the Podcast, and I'll see you guys in formation.